Sound those trumpets. Oh, yes. You guys hear that?
Roll out the carpet for Josh.
You hear those trumpets? I wrote a damn article.
Ian writes 27 columns a week and can't get any trumpets.
I wrote an article on this website. That is a mock draft. And whenever that happens, boom, we bring in the big money trumpets. Yes, the mock draft is up.
As you're seeing on the video, yeah, we have a graphic.
Look at that graphic. That's
beautiful.
It is nice. Well done.
We got the social team on it as well. I don't really have like a form of how I want to go through this mock. I will read how about the top 5, and then I will let you all ask me questions of the column that I wrote here.
Fair.
Again, on Rotoworld.com. Number 1, quarterback Joe Burrow to the Cincinnati Bengals. 2, Tua Tagovailoa. From Alabama, obviously, the Washington Redskins. Chase Young, the pass rusher to the Detroit Lions.
We're not going to stop in between and discuss these?
Mekhi Becton, 4 to the New York Giants. 5, Isaiah Simmons to the Miami Dolphins. Now, go ahead, John Daigle. What did you have to say?
I'll start. So, Tua, he's awesome. He's also apparently got quite a few hip problems. Do we really think, I know we've seen Kyler, we've seen Baker, like teams are more and more taking these off-script quarterbacks and maybe don't fit the conventional mold as much, but Justin Herbert, we're hearing these rumors that a lot of teams still have him as the number 1 quarterback. They even had him as the number 1 quarterback last year. I don't know. With those injury questions, like how confident are you Tua is the number 2 quarterback off the board?
So these are 2 separate topics. I'll start off with Tua. Matt Money Smith spoke on the Around the NFL podcast that he heard around Indianapolis that Tua's surgery is quite different than any other surgeries we hear about for draft prospects. In fact, it was deemed a trauma surgery, which is quite different than kind of like and I'm no doctor, but a longevity surgery. When you repair a knee so it can be capable of playing football for 10 or 20 years or whatever it is. That is an unknown. That is uncharted territory for NFL teams. And you know this from following the NFL just from the outside. Teams hate to be the first on anything. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, yes, I fully believe these glowing reports that Ian Rappaport and whoever else put out during NFL Combine Week that, Tua's medical is perfect. I don't know that. And even if it is, again, it's a knee. It's a hip. It's not a knee. It's not a shoulder. It's something new. So I would say that maybe there are concerns around the league about that. Does that make sense? And I also want to point out, we talked about this on Tuesday with the Washington Redskins, that this could be their Patrick Mahomes, their Deshaun Watson moment, that instead of sticking with Dwayne Haskins, they get a quarterback that they maybe believe in more. I'm not saying Haskins was bad. I'm saying, did he show you enough to move on from maybe a quarterback that you think is better in this case? And I think if they're in this position here at number 2, Tua makes total sense if they fully believe in it.
Honestly, if Joe Burrow was not from Ohio, I would say Tua even is in the picture for the number 1 overall pick. But I think the Bengals already have their mind made up. Of course, Mike Brown is the one to screw that up. But
I would also say that Joe Burrow had statistically the best season ever in college football history.
1 year. Yeah.
You also asked about Justin Herbert, Ian Harditz. Let's go to number 6. I have him going to the Los Angeles Chargers. This is somewhat dot connecting. One, Herbert and Jordan Love were mentioned quite a bit during the NFL Combine. I want to point you to Kim Jones's report on the field right before Combine activities started. She mentioned that there is one team out there that she has spoken to that believes Justin Herbert is the most talented passer in 2020 and also believed he was the number 1 passer.
That's what I was talking about,
in 2019. That's important. And I mean, this is, we're just trying to pick out threads here and go from dot A to dot B. But I remember back when Tom Telesco drafted Joey Bosa. And no one knew they were going to draft Joey Bosa at the time. People thought like Ronnie Stanley, a number of other players. And he said, I've been waiting to draft you for 2 years because I loved your evaluation for 2 years. So if I was to think of one GM who might have wanted to draft Justin Herbert for years and years and years and had this evaluation up on the board already, it could be that same place with Tom Telesco here with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Does that make sense? Did I explain myself correctly?
No, that's connecting the dots. That's what I like to hear.
With Anthony Lynn up on the podium speaking glowingly about Tyrod Taylor, saying, oh yeah, he could absolutely be our starter. To me, that speaks that this team is not going to make a splash in free agency at the quarterback position. No, instead they're looking at a draft pick in mind and then Taylor being the starter most likely as they lead into training camp.
I think it's really interesting because I would argue every team is aware both Fields and Trevor Lawrence come out next year. So they also maneuver in this draft according to what they believe happens next year as well as this year.
And that's what I'm kind of wondering with the Dolphins, because the Jordan Love for Love is just insane right now. I agree, Isaiah Simmons. Like there's, I did some team needs earlier in off season. I usually did a position group for most teams, but for Dolphins, one of the needs was just defense. They need help at all three levels, and it seems like Isaiah Simmons is maybe one of those Derwin James, Jamal Adams type of talents where they actually can upgrade almost your entire defense in one pick.
They're in the best case scenario because they have their pick of the litter. The best player that falls to them, they just take, and because that's the situation they've been building to.
So, and I already have Tua off the board, but let's say Tua's there at 3 or 4 or wherever else, and I could obviously see the Dolphins moving up to get him if they love him. But yeah, the Dolphins do have 3 first-round selections. At 5, again, I mentioned Isaiah Simmons. Then at 18, Jordan Love, I had them taking. And then at 26, I have them taking tackle out of USC, Austin Jackson. That's 3 pivotal holes that this team can fill. And you mentioned Isaiah Simmons. Derwin James, I think, is a perfect comparison. Now, Derwin James coming out of FSU was considered a safety. Isaiah Simmons is considered a linebacker, but it doesn't matter because on one snap, you could see him rushing off the edge. Then the next snap, you can see him as a single high safety covering the field outside the numbers. That's wild. You never see that before. But also, when we observe the league, that's a type of player that I'm not sure I would trust 20 defensive coordinators to know what to do with him. True. They might only know to line him up in one spot and ask him to do the same thing play after play. I know Brian Flores might not be the exact defensive coordinator on that team, but I damn sure know that he absolutely would know what to do with Isaiah Simmons and to at least deploy him like the Patriots deployed Kyle Van Noy.
And it's a good kind of question, I think, with a lot of these defenders, particularly. Like, how much do you value versatility, the ability to play 5 positions at a solid level, or why not go get Jeffrey Okudah, who we're probably more confident in that his one really high-level skill, just lockdown coverage, might be better than any one skill Simmons brings to the table.
I want to quickly talk about number 8, though, before you have Okudah going to the Jaguars at 9, because you have Jedrick Wills going to the Cardinals at number 8. And much like McGregor 2 belts, I'm Daigle 2 mocks, and they come out not until April, but I have it going on behind the scenes here, and I have CeeDee Lamb to the Cardinals early. So you were saying that your belief right now in March is that the Cardinals are prioritizing offensive line.
I do, and it's because they need to find talents that are of equal talent to Kyler Murray. What is it the saying? The rising tide lifts all boats, something like that. And we watched Kyler Murray play last season, and in the passing game, he elevated the blocking around him. You mentioned that Atlanta Falcons game when he was pressured, was able to find time and hit receivers down the field. But in the running game, I would say Cliff's zone scheme was able to elevate the talent of his blockers as well. But what if we could just, pair D.J. Humphries on the left side with Jedrick Wills on the right side? I would also say this. A lot of people are mentioning how good the wide receiver class in this group is. It is. It's fantastic. I would suggest that the tackle class is just as good at the top. I mean, I have 7 first-round tackles.
Top heavy, though,
mock.
right?
It is.
Yeah.
So you have to get one early. The wide receiver class might not be top heavy. You might be able to get players in the 2nd and the 3rd round that are very good. So at this spot, at number 8, Jedrick Wills does make a lot of sense. I mean, he has the athleticism to definitely hold up in Cliff Kingsbury's running scheme as well. Anything else, gentlemen?
I was going to say I'm with you on number 10 for Andrew Thomas, a tackle to the Browns. It is very clear that is a position of need and what they're searching for in this draft. I don't know if it's Andrew Thomas just yet, but that's the player that's been linked to them, correct, in Indy?
Yeah, a few. And Andrew Thomas is just like this nasty blocker. He's so much fun as a left tackle in Georgia. And there's few other fits that I really love, like Henry Ruggs to the Denver Broncos at 15, the speed wide receiver out of Alabama. So why not have Cortland Sutton on one side lining up in his man-to-man coverage, and then also having a speed and burner on the other side, and Henry Ruggs.
Noah Fant going up the seam. I like it.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
I have one real quick. Derrick Brown, so he really did not do well with the combine and all that, right? But so are you kind of guessing that the Raiders, who last year, with Jacobs and some of their picks, they're not slaves to athleticism scores, it seems like.
They are not.
Let me preface this really quick by saying Vic Tafur just wrote an article saying that the plan is for the Raiders to spend up in free agency and draft for speed on offense. Now continue.
Well, that would throw a wrench in it. And obviously,
it just came out this morning.
Free agency is going to throw a wrench in this. And that's why I get to write another one right after free agency is done.
Because they have been linked to Chris Harris and Byron Jones so far.
To answer your question on Derrick Brown, he ran the slowest 3-cone of any defensive lineman. Okay. And I think a lot of people heading in, had expectations of him as an athlete, and he probably didn't meet those. That's okay. I mean, it's our own fault that we have expectations. But I just wouldn't necessarily list him as a top 3, top 5 prospect in this class. And I think that he overpowered a lot of his opponents at the college level. But if you have, below par, below average athletic testing along that defensive line or on the edge, to me, it makes me question if you have the juice. And all the top pass rushers in the NFL have the juice, and they're able to get after the quarterback. There are a couple other connections that I absolutely love, by the way. I know Philadelphia Eagles fans got mad at me for mentioning Jalen Reagor there at number 21 out of TCU.
Pretty
He's
early.
kind of like a mini DK Metcalf in a lot of ways. But that's because this team completely fell into a shell offensively. You guys would back this up without Deshaun Jackson. So while someone like Jerry Jeudy to me is still on the board in that case, he's more refinement. And in this case, I'm going with the rocket ship in Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, and that's kind of been consistent throughout Wentz's career when they lose that field stretcher. I mean, even, what was the difference between 2017 and 2018? In 2018, they tried to replace Torrey Smith and Mike Wallace. That didn't work. Mac Hollins' experiment, that didn't work. Wentz just has not had a field stretcher in the offense other than the one game with Deshaun Jackson. And, I know it was against Washington, but he sure as hell looked pretty good that game. So, yeah, if you can just add almost like a backup plan for Deshaun Jackson, I'm in.
Playmaker on offense makes sense. That seems really early for Jalen Reagor, though. And I like him.
Well, none of us know what's going to happen. This is why,
it's still early.
Let me emphasize, I love doing mock drafts prior to free agency.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
They're assigned to me.
Hey, do what you have passion for, man.
What do you see the likelihood that we got Kansas City at 32, let's say Tennessee doesn't re-sign Derrick Henry, they're at 29, Miami 26. Jonathan Taylor, can he sneak into the back of this first round?
I don't think so. I thought Josh Jacobs was somewhat special coming out of Alabama. I'm not sure if I see a special talent in this running back class at all.
If you want me to crush your heart right now, it's still early, but I was listening to the Football Guys podcast with Dane Brugler and Sigmund Bloom this morning.
I know those guys.
And Dane Brugler said the Lions are looking to go running back early in the second round, hopefully Jonathan Taylor, which would be the worst case scenario for all of us because that also pretty much gets rid of Kerryon Johnson, and it's the worst landing spot for Taylor.
I mean, Kerryon's not going to get a full-time role.
But neither then would Taylor, who's supposed to be the next Darrell Henderson. So you never know, Josh. You never know.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.